Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. I'm sitting here with my main man, Frankie Abbott. Frankie, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. We got some Hall of Fame game action tonight. I've been a degenerate. I have laid down my bets. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is getting 30 rushing yards. And, I'm feeling pretty good. We're a week out of Broncos football. I think it's 8 days until the first game. Looking forward to it. Devastated about the Tim Patrick injury, but, we're here. How are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I don't know if anyone's noticed the new setup going on right now, but it's a little different. And it's because my landlord kicked me out of my big room and put me in a smaller room. So that's that's the situation right now, and I'm trying to adjust. So first pod in the new room, man. That's what I'm on right now. First
Well, it
pod.
sounds great. The acoustics in there, it's really popping. It sounds excellent.
Hey man, if you saw the behind the scenes, like I kind of set it up where it looks okay. I got the albums over here. We got the little knickknacks on this side. You saw the back of what I'm sitting on right now, an office desk that's or an office chair that's too short, so I have like 3 towels on top of it. Maybe you have a little bit of different opinion. But man, I'm excited for this podcast. There's a ton to go over. A ton of training camp news, and Frankie, we haven't really covered training camp yet. That's something I'm really looking forward to. How are you feeling with training camp finally live? We have the NFL going tonight. NFL football is finally back. How are you feeling about that?
I'm eager to get to it. It's funny. I was so excited for training camp to start, and then the first day we got a major injury, and then I was terrified of training camp in the preseason. And now I'm just anxiously awaiting the regular season, praying every day that we don't see another major injury or honestly anything of the sort, hoping for a little bit less Russell Wilson interceptions. But I mean, really, it seems like it's all going pretty well. It sounds like Sean Payton's happy with how the team is progressing. He's really getting into the install of his offense and the entire team. Sounds like the defense is really taking another step forward, at least in the secondary. And, there's really not much more to say. I mean, it's just the countdown towards Broncos football. Only 3 games of preseason, and then we'll be getting into it.
Bro. It is crazy. It feels like, I don't know, every offseason I kind of say the same thing, but it feels like so long but so short at the same time. It's hard to kind of explain, man. When you really look back at last year, the NFL season, it really wasn't that long ago, but you look forward to this type of stuff. That's I guess the good part about how long the NFL offseason is that when the football actually hits, it's like we are hyped up. I am fully ready to watch this damn preseason game tonight, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so ready to watch this preseason game. I don't care who's out there, who's playing football. I just want to watch football tonight.
Yeah, 100%. There's a ton of prospects on each side. I think we've both liked over the past couple of years too. So, I mean, like this preseason, I was saying it to somebody, but like last year I was so excited for the Broncos because of the Russell Wilson factor. It felt like that the team as a whole was finally back. But this year, I think last year kicked the hell out of me. I'm a little bit wary of watching Broncos football. I'm scared by week 5. I'm not going to want to turn another game. But I'm really excited about the NFL this year. I feel like the league as a whole is just so exciting. There's so many good teams, so much parity over the past couple of years outside of, the Chiefs obviously just dominating everybody. We're like, I think it's going to be a really fun season. There's a ton of rookies I like, ton of intrigue around the league. And yeah, I mean, I just can't wait for it to get underway. But then we got a lot of Broncos news that's been taking place over the last few weeks in camp as well.
Bro, a ton. And let's get straight into that. Tim Patrick, man, Achilles injury, out for the entire year. Of course, tore his ACL last year. So now this is 2 back-to-back season-ending injuries in training camp for the guy. I feel terrible for him, Frankie. I feel absolutely terrible. Tim Patrick, I think, is I've been on record saying this. I think Tim Patrick, when healthy, he's the best pound-for-pound receiver on this team. If I want to look at the most overall, who do I trust in every aspect of playing wide receiver? And that goes into blocking, sure hands, down the field threat, underneath, like all those different types of stuff. And if I accumulate a grade, I think Tim Patrick might be my number 1. So I'm curious with you, Frankie, is there another guy on this team that you think could fill his slot a little bit?
I mean, 1 for 1, no. Tim Patrick, as you said, is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. I saw Mina kind of spit out a tweet the other week that was like he's on that all writers team. Like all the people that are in the know about football, all the film watchers, all the beat writers, they love Tim Patrick. He's one of those great players in the league. When you turn on his film, he just does everything well, as reliable as an old pickup, great third down machine, just a devastating blow for him. And, it's like, it's kind of like the Klay Thompson thing where he's going to go now a second straight regular season without getting to play a single snap. With the way his contract is set up, sadly, too, this might end up being the last we see of Tim Patrick in a Denver Broncos uniform, which is just heartbreaking, because we didn't really get to see him ever get to play with an elite quarterback, or at least an upper level or even middling quarterback, honestly. And it's one of those things that I hope Tim Patrick gets the chance to sign another contract, but with how teams treat players after injury, you never know. So absolutely devastating. I think as far as how they're going to replace Tim Patrick, one of my favorite movies, Moneyball, we're going to talk about it like this. We're going to replace him in the aggregate. We're gonna find ways to get on base. We don't have great run blockers. We're gonna put in a good run blocking receiver.
Yep.
Maybe Callaway can fill that role. Maybe we see Alberto or Greg Dulcich take a step forward, and we're using them in that split out option a little bit. You got Marvin Mims, who's able to kind of take away on those outside deep ball plays. Marquez Callaway can kind of be that bigger body, maybe running some more of the over the middle stuff. I think that they have the receiver room to be able to semi-replicate the production you were going to get out of him, but you don't have that consistent, reliable target that I think that this team is going to desperately miss. And you made a great comment, especially about the run blocking. All we have heard all offseason, every Sean Payton presser, everyone who's been watching Broncos football knows this team is going to run the ball a lot this year. This team is going to pound the rock. They're going to be one of the highest carry teams in the NFL, and they just lost their best run blocking receiver in Tim Patrick. He is easily the most consistent guy out there, plays with a lot of effort and lands a lot of effective blocks, especially at the point of attack, where now when you're talking about you have a room of Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton, I'd say, is actually pretty quality. He's not bad at all, but Jerry could use a little bit of work in his run blocking. Marvin Mims is like probably just cracking 200 pounds. I'm sure he's not that great of a run blocker. He might show a lot of effort, but probably isn't too effective. And then Greg Dulcich over the past year hasn't really shown too much growth in that role, where this room definitely lost a big piece in its run blocking element.
No, they definitely did, man. And it's a shame. Like, the whole situation sucks. It really does suck. When you're reading the tea leaves this offseason, everything indicated that their plans for Tim Patrick were massive. I will say that. I really do think that. Guys, there's certain people to follow and read into their comments a little bit. Some of these guys that are close to the team, these NFL reporters, and when you heard them talk about Tim Patrick, it was always in such a great fashion. They're hearing that from somebody. That's something we need to keep in mind. They were hearing that from somebody this entire way through. And it's just devastating to hear that he's hurt, because I think he was for a massive season when I was looking at these comments these guys were making. But Frankie, he wasn't the only wide receiver hurt. It was also KJ Hamler, who the Broncos also waived. Prayers to KJ Hamler, no doubt about it. The guy has a heart condition, and I hope he comes back as good as ever. It feels like he is the most snake-bitten person ever when it comes down to these injuries. Everyone's aware of all of all of his comments about his mental health going through these injuries and everything like that. So it makes it that much more devastating that, he's back. He wants to go. He's ready. He wants to play under the Sean Payton offense. And what happens again? Another thing, another hurdle for him to cross. I don't know. I just thought I would address that. Frankie, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, nothing much else besides it's absolutely heartbreaking. Couldn't happen to, a worse thing couldn't happen to a better person. He's a guy who's, as you've said, has made the comments about how tough this has been on his mental health, his journey, kind of dealing with the depression through all these injuries. And then he kind of ends up coming up with a condition that's completely out of anybody's control. Not that injuries are anybody's fault really in the first place, but, literally just a medical condition. Hopefully he's able to recover from that and make his way onto whether it's the Broncos roster or another NFL roster or whatever he ends up doing in the future. Wish him the absolute best, but absolutely heartbroken for KJ Hamler. Never really got the chance to kind of turn it on as a Broncos deep threat. He really, you can only remember a few of those key highlights. The deep bomb from Drew Lock against the Panthers a few years ago. That one sticks out in my mind for a KJ Hamler highlight. But
I don't want to interrupt you, but the guy is ultra talented.
Oh yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I think KJ Hamler, if he has a healthy career, he stands out and he's a starter on this team.
No, and it's funny too, because we're big draft guys. You hear people talk about draft guys. KJ Hamler is still a player that people comp to. Like when you talk about some of the new speed threats that are coming out with great ball tracking ability to play through contact, people still compare guys to KJ Hamler in that facet. He was so good coming out of Penn State. just,
Dude,
sadly wasn't able to kind of.
In his short time.
Oh, yeah.
In the regular season. I was shocked. I thought he was a slot-dependent wide receiver. What did the Broncos do right out the gate? KJ Hamler played more of that outside. When Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler were on the field at the same time, KJ Hamler was more of that outside guy and Jeudy was more of the slot guy when they were both on the field together. Now, of course, that could have been a coaching flaw because we've gone through some pretty bad offensive coordinators here in Denver, but that was something that happened, and he looked good. I always, when I speak of KJ Hamler, I always speak of how he looked in training camp, his going into his sophomore year. So last year, the guy was completely unguardable. I'll be completely honest with you. He looked in training camp like the best wide receiver on the team, right up there with Sutton, right up there with Patrick, right up there with Jeudy. He was completely unguardable. There was no one on the field that could guard him. Nobody. Frank, before I move on here, Kyle Blacker chimes in. He says, wow, a Wolf shirt. Love it. Shout out to Kyle. Kyle's the man. We also have Cam in here. He says, what up, podcast nerds? Cam Parker. Make sure you are going to follow Cam Parker and Mainly Broncos. They have a great show over there. They just had my man John on their podcast the other day. So make sure you're going to check out everything they do. But let's move on. And we have a Wazarike. Now, this story is nuts to me.
This is wild.
It's a wild story.
Like,
what was it, 32 bets? It was 30-something bets.
Yes.
He put 30-something bets on the Broncos.
Slamming those Russ unders.
Bro, literally, I would pay money to see what those bets were.
On games he played in, too.
What was that?
On games he played in, too, because I think that, the last one he put down was that Chiefs game, and he was actually pretty decent in that Chiefs game, like the Week 15 one last year.
Listen, now that he's off the team, I'm going to say it, bro. If this guy was betting on a Wazarike over on anything, they shouldn't suspend him. He lost enough. I think that Wazarike was the worst thing you could possibly do. So I don't care making the jokes. I have no idea what he's doing. I don't know how you fumble your NFL career betting 32 times on your own team when it's so clear that that's something you're not allowed to do. Like,
you better have been betting whole game checks.
Before 30 for 30s are out. We all know about this. I have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one I don't like to bash on young players who make mistakes. Everyone's been young and 20 and done something dumb, but my God, man, this is a pretty dumb way to go out of your NFL career. And the fact, it's wild that I don't know how likely the prison scenario is, but the idea of imagine just scary ass dude. You walk into your bunkmate, you're you see this 6'5", 340-pound guy walking, you're like, holy shit, what did this guy do? What's up, man? What'd you do? Bet on NFL games. Oh my God, that guy's gonna have a rough time in jail.
Yeah. If anything like that happens, I'm gonna feel really bad. But I'm gonna be completely honest. Right now, as it stands, being off the team and suspended, and probably not to play in the NFL again, it's hard for me to feel bad. This is an older guy too, for how young he is. He's really not that young. Yeah, he came into the NFL old.
Yeah.
I just, bro, it's just I don't know. I know that he watches ESPN. I know that he's watched the NFL Network before. Everybody knows that that's not okay. Everybody. I just don't know what he's thinking. That's all I really have to say there. Yeah. Do you have anything else where I can?
I guess my final thought, hopefully it wasn't known by the rest of the team, or there's not any lingering issues. He wasn't putting in bets for teammates or anything. I don't think that's the case at all, but hopefully this
a different name or something.
I mean, maybe, but I feel if you're doing it that consistently and you're literally doing it on the games you're playing in, I feel your teammates would have some idea. Maybe it was just completely under the shadow wraps and he was doing it in the black market football gambling world. But I feel maybe someone would have some idea, but whatever. That's complete conjecture.
I feel they were bets on himself because they made it so clear that.
Joey, do you sports bet?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you really think they have? I don't think they have Ayomo Wazarike player props on week 2.
Bro, he found the one. He found the one because the the report says team and players.
I'm getting 14 snaps today. Damn it! Like, what would he bet on? Tackles? Like, he'd get like 0.5. It'd be the over.
Probably, bro. He was probably using it to pump himself up. He was like, "Today's the day I get 2 sacks," and that shit just never came. That's probably what happened.
Dude, that's it. That's his defense in court. He's like, "This was my motivation." Okay, I told myself I was getting these numbers. Look at these odds, Judge. These weren't hitting at all, but I told myself they would.
If Awadorige was out there, making bets on himself, free that man. Get him back in the league. That's tough. Let's move on, though. I think we should talk about the Broncos. Riley Moss has an injury. More of a serious note. Riley Moss has an injury, and in that, they signed Fabian Moreau, the cornerback. I am curious, Frankie. I saw some of your tweets about him. What are your opinions on Fabian Moreau? Do you think he's a guy that can come in and play for the Broncos and be a productive player?
He's a fine veteran presence. Actually offers a little bit of outside-inside versatility. So I do think that, like, if they get into a jam and need an extra nickel, he's a body that can play there. But I mean, he's been perfectly reliable over his career. Spent last year with the Giants and was pretty decent for them. Fine player. I don't know. I don't really have anything over the moon. Nothing bad to say. He's fine. I think, again, it really sucks that Riley Moss is kind of struggling with this injury early on. He was a guy I was really excited to see kind of develop in this Vance Joseph defense. I think when you talk about what you want in a Vance Joseph corner, Riley Moss fits that mold very well. So a bit of a disappointing thing that we got to kind of wait to see him get acclimated into this defense. I think, like Joey said, it'll be like 4 weeks, they said. So probably going to miss out on the entirety of the preseason, have to kind of start making his mark once the games start to count. But, he'll be back before too long, and hopefully Fabian Moreau can hold it down until then.
Yeah, Frankie, I'm curious. Do you think this has anything – do you think that the fact that right when Riley Moss gets hurt, they want to add a vet that can play for this team, not just like a developmental guy? No, we know what this guy can do for us. Does that indicate that they did have a big role in plan for a Riley Moss?
I mean, I'd say probably, but I think more so it's just you want to have enough bodies that are like capable. I don't think that they necessarily saw somebody else that they thought would be a better option as far as the young guy goes. So I think, yes, it shows that they did have something in mind for Riley Moss, but at the same time, like, I think your third outside corner, which I think Riley Moss was kind of guaranteed to be at this point, is always going to be a vital piece of your roster. So, I mean, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's a fair answer. I do think that's a fair answer. I also think that he did have a role on this team, Frankie, and I'm interested. Like, it was supposed to be a cornerback battle there between him and Demar Mathis. A lot of people were projecting Riley Moss to win, and one of those people were me, just because I didn't trust Vance Joseph. I'd always thought that Demar Mathis was going to be the better corner, but I figured because Riley Moss proven to be a Vance Joseph type of guy that he would play Riley Moss instead. I don't know. And we're working our way through these training camp injuries. It's been this entire conversation. We talked about Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Awazurike suspended. And for the last one, Frankie, Jonas Griffith is also out for the entire season, man. And it's just another one. It's just another one. Do I think that he would have had a massive role on this team? Probably not. They drafted Drew Sanders for a reason. Just plain and simple, they did. And they already are 3 deep. Jonas Griffin would have got them 4 deep at playable linebackers, in my opinion. But I don't know. Do you disagree, agree with me? Do you think that this is a huge loss for the Broncos, or can they bounce back from this?
I think it's a fairly significant loss, especially for what he was probably going to provide on the special teams aspect. Yeah, I mean, it just sucks. It's another key player, I think, a leader on this defense who's been here for a couple of years that, now is going to be out for the entire season. And who knows if we'll really get the chance to see in Denver again, since he was only back on the 1-year deal. But yeah, hopefully we get to see Drew Sanders maybe take advantage of the slightly bigger opportunity he's going to be given. They also did sign Austin Ajiake in this place. I saw some people saying he had some decent size and mobility skills today, but maybe we see Justin Sternad make some more plays and finally become the dream that Vic Fangio had 4 years ago or 3 years ago. But yeah, man, I mean, just another devastating injury. It sucks seeing these preseason guys go down, especially for a defense that was looking so strong. But I will say, I'll be the guy who was wearing the clown nose. I was talking last week about how, this team could possibly look to move some guys like Josie Jewell, or maybe they could end up looking to move a guy like Jonas Griffith to get some extra capital because that was like one of those deeper positions. And you were making the comment that you want to be strong somewhere. Well, a week later, with injuries to Tim Patrick, with injuries to Jonas Griffith, they needed those bodies. They are going to end up needing Drew Sanders to play a lot of snaps this year. They're going to need 3 linebackers on this depth chart that are able to play. And sadly, now they're one shorter.
No, without question. And yeah, I think Cam hit the head on or hit the nail on the head, and I think so did you, Frankie. I think the special teams is the biggest part of this. When you project players to special teams, this is a guy that likes to hit and runs really fast down the field. He's probably a good special teams player. The same way I'm going to project JL Skinner to be a good special teams player. They're just players like that where you can watch them play defense and be like, they project well to being a really good special teams player. And Griffith has already shown that he can be a guy for your
I'd say Griffith is also probably – I mean, Sanders might be better this year, but I think Griffith was also probably the best interior blitzer that they had, like the best designated pass rusher from that off-ball spot. Griffith is a really good –
Better than Singleton?
I'd say, yeah. I mean, I think Singleton's really good in the run game at carving through blocking lanes, but I think in pass pro, I think Jonas Griffith is really impressive.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the main topic of today's show, Frankie. I want to talk more about the training camp, everything that we've done like that. I want to also say, Frankie and I haven't been there. Guys, if you think I'm about to go stand in that sun on that hill,
I live in Wisconsin.
Coming. We got Zach Seeker's thread. Why would I ever need to do something like that? I'm going to go sit in my car AC and I'm going to listen to it. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But I wanted to ask you, it sounds like from everything I've seen and it seems universal at this point, the defense is dominating the offense. And Russell Wilson has thrown a lot of interceptions. Justin Simmons has come up with an interception every single day. I don't think he came in with today, actually. So every other day except for today, Justin Simmons has came up with an interception on Russell Wilson. Is this worrisome to you? Can you break this down of why or why not? This is a big deal for Russell Wilson.
So I don't think it's a big deal. I think that maybe there is a little bit of smoke of concern, but I don't think that there's a full-on fire yet. Sean Payton was making comments today about how, like, he's setting up the offense kind of at a disadvantage. He's kind of slanting the practices towards the offense from the defensive side of the ball, making them run some looks that they're necessarily not going to be running against the looks that the Denver defense is running. And just, I think when you talk about something we've heard so much about Sean Payton as a coach, as an offensive mind, he's so detail-oriented. Nick Hosmeider had a great article, The Athletic guy. He was on the Let's Talk Broncos podcast yesterday. Shout out to that guy. He had a great article this week with an interview with Adam Troutman where he was talking about the details and all the little things in Sean Payton's offense and all the little things that they have to learn to get right, and how it's so much more about the things surrounding Russ than it is about Russ, that I think, we're just kind of seeing that process, the entire onboarding process of all of these little details that they have to learn, like the alignments that the receivers are having to take, the depth of their routes that they're having to run, the timings of these throws that Russ has to make. So I'm not too concerned yet, but I do hope that through the duration of training camp, we do start to see some days where the offense does make the defense look more pedestrian, or just at least not look like they're the greatest defense on earth. Because, again, I'm very confident in this defense. I think they're going to be a great unit this year, but they're not going to be this unbeatable unit, and especially in training camp. I think you'd like to see a little bit more hope coming out of the camp, where I think that's the biggest thing. It's not so much that I'm like super concerned, but I haven't seen enough reason for hope. It's not like we're getting all these notes about Russell Wilson is carving up camp. Russell Wilson is really making great reads. He's being decisive with these throws. His ball placement has been really good. And I think that's what scares me more than the interceptions is when, we talked to Zach personally, when you're reading from a lot of these other guys, the Russell INTs don't upset me so much from a decision-making standpoint. Obviously, it's not like we're there, so we know what decisions he's making. But you're reading a lot about overthrows. You're reading a lot about missed targets. You're reading a lot about maybe guys getting open and Russ isn't putting in a good enough ball on them and the DB is able to recover and make a play. And I guess that's what scares me more than anything because, again, Russell Wilson's game is so predicated on his ability to be this deep passer. And we've never really seen Sean Payton work with a quarterback that is so dependent on playing outside of the margins of the offense, that I think that's what concerns me more than anything is it's like we're not hearing that Russell Wilson is – I have concerns because – you hear Sean Payton talking about, sorry, I don't mean to be rambling forever. You hear Sean Payton talk so much about how tempo is so important to this offense and how, being on time, making sure we're getting to the line so we can get the right plan, so we can make adjustments. And that's just not really the type of quarterback that Russell Wilson is. Russell Wilson is not the guy that is looking to beat you with his mind and kind of chip you down the field, get yourselves in the right position so you can make a play. That's just never been the type of guy that Russ is. Russ has always been one of the longest time to throw quarterbacks in the league, one of the guys who benefits the most from being able to get outside the pocket and extend plays. And that's just not Sean Payton's scheme that he's ever run. So I think that's what concerns me more than the just like, oh, Russell Wilson's throwing a few too many ints at training camp. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make a huge deal about it because I've seen Case Keenum going in the training camp and not throwing an interception the entire time. And everyone's like, the Broncos made the best decision ever signing Case Keenum. Different things like that. So I don't want to put too much emphasis on what's going on in training camp with Russ. I mean, would I rather him look fantastic? Of course. It's just how much stock am I putting into it? Not much, either direction. Very, very little am I putting into it. There are certain positions where it does matter. I think, like, if I'm sitting there looking at wide receivers and corners, if a wide receiver is dominating all of his drills, it's easy to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is this and this and that. But coaches will set up certain things for the quarterback to fail just to see how they react. In training camp. It's a practice for the quarterback. You know, they're actually trying to make them work. They're not scheduling something to make it as easy as possible for them, like they would in a game. It's not that way. They're putting them in tough situations. So, of course, they're going to throw more interceptions. Things aren't going to look as pretty. I don't know. I don't put a huge ton of stock in it, Frankie, if I'm being completely honest, but maybe a little. Definitely a little. I'd rather him look fantastic than look bad, I guess is how I would frame it.
No, 100%. I mean, I think today, we heard Peyton talk about today with the red zone period. I mean, just how slanted these practices are towards the offense so far. So again, like exactly like you said, not super concerned right now, but if this continues, if we continue to go every day, we're hearing about one or two Russell Wilson ugly interceptions, and we're not hearing so much like, man, he's really starting to turn a corner, I will start to get a little bit concerned. I can't lie.
Right. Okay, well, I want to then talk about some of the receivers he's throwing to. We talked about Tim Patrick earlier, Frankie, but Brandon Johnson's taking the majority of his reps right now. From everything I've read coming out, if you're following Zach Seegers and his training camp thread, everything I've seen, or if you're in the Discord with Let's Talk Broncos and you get that exclusive information Zach Seegers provides after training camp, you will he said multiple times that Brandon Johnson is getting the majority of the reps there. Do you think that with stands, do you think that's something that's going to continue? Brandon Johnson will be the number 3 wide receiver on this team, or do you just kind of think he's sliding in there for right now?
I think a little bit of both. I think Brandon Johnson has all the talent to become the wide receiver 3 on this team, but I think right now it's more about kind of giving some of the younger other guys a look. Like, I think we both agreed. I think Marquez Callaway is pretty much a lock for this roster. I don't know if you feel differently. I don't think that Sean Payton needs to see more out of Marquez Callaway. Marquez Callaway was a productive player for Sean Payton in the past. I think he was brought here to kind of teach the other receivers kind of how to play in the Sean Payton system. So I think it's kind of more of a case of you'd rather see what Brandon Johnson, Jalen Virgil, Marvin Mims, these other younger guys can kind of do while you have the opportunity to do so. And you're wanting them to kind of learn the position where, again, you don't really need Marquez Callaway to learn how to play the Z or the X or the Y in the Sean Payton offense because he's done it before. You haven't had Brandon Johnson, these other guys do it before. So it's more important, I think, to get them the reps, especially early on before you get into preseason. And again, I think there's the possibility that we see possibly multiple of these guys show that they've got the potential to do something, and maybe they end up moving on from one of them or kind of trying to get a pick for one of them. But I think that's the main reason I put behind it is I think that they just kind of want to give these guys that I wouldn't say aren't confident in, but don't know if they can be confident in. They want to give them a chance before saying like Mark, again, it just doesn't give them much good, I think, to give these guys that they're already confident in more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm wondering why though, like why wouldn't Marcus Callaway just slide in? Why is it Brandon Johnson? That's interesting to me because if there's one guy that knows the offense and would help Russell Wilson look the best or the offense look the best because they have the most knowledge on what Sean Payton is trying to do out there, Marquez Callaway has such a huge advantage on everybody else out here in this room. Him and Lil Jordan Humphrey. I don't know.
I think it just kind of depends upon opinion because I'm saying I don't think week 1, if it was to be today, that Brandon Johnson would be the 3rd receiver on this team. But I get why in training camp they're having it be that way. I think you're right. I think Marquez Callaway is going to be on the field most of the time in 3 receiver sets when the season starts initially because he'll be helping kind of guys learn. But I think for right now, kind of back to what I said, it makes sense for them to kind of see what they have in these other pieces.
That's true. That's true. And I think we'll probably get a better indication by that preseason game too.
Oh, yeah.
That's when you'll start to see, because starters will be playing. By that game.
I think starters are going to play week 1. I think Sean's going to, outside of Javonte Williams, I think at least a series. Sean Payton, if I don't want to quote this, so don't quote me on it, but I'm fairly certain he's like always been a guy that gets at least one series in the first preseason game for his starters.
Bro, that after game film breakdown is going to be crazy by you, Frankie. It's going to be crazy. If you're not following Frankie, go follow him at Frankie Films, because he does that type of stuff. He'll break down the game, and it might be just 30 minutes after the game. Frankie might even just have clips up already. And
as soon as I can get it,
he will. I almost would put money on that. Frankie would have, all of his breakdowns and thoughts up at Frankie Films on Twitter. We also, like I said, in the Discord, he's going to do that same thing. So make sure you guys are following along with that. I want to carry the conversation over, though, and a player I'm excited to see your breakdowns on, Frankie, Quinn Miners. I think that I was pissed off last year when I heard the guy had to lose weight. It didn't sit right with me. Didn't at all. Plenty athletic to run any system at whatever weight he was the year prior. Why are we making this guy lose weight? And he's back up to 340 pounds. The belly is back, man. How are you going to take the belly away? That doesn't even make sense. His nickname's the belly, and you want him to lose weight. Come on now. Come on. And I just want to know your opinion on that, man. I'm excited about it. I think more weight on Quinn Miners. That 340 might probably be the sweet spot.
Yeah, Butch Berry committed devastating war crimes against the Denver Broncos. But I digress. Quinn Miners got the weight back, got the belly back. And I mean, I'm excited for it. I mean, again, I'll keep saying it. I think everyone's going to keep saying it. This team is going to run the ball a lot. And Quinn Miners, his rookie season, was a damn good run blocker. He loved throwing that belly around and knocking people on their ass, whether it was, counter draws, counters, running up. Just that dude is really good at pulling. And I'm excited for him to get to do that in the Sean Payton offense. We've heard pretty good things about him and Ben Powers so far, at least from the little things I've seen. Some decent gaps getting opened up by those two. But I mean, yeah, I'm ecstatic about it. Quinn seems happier about it. I mean, he heard him in the interview. He was talking about how it was a real struggle for him to stay down at 320, 325 pounds, which is hilarious because that's nearly 3 of me. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what Quinn can do this year, man. I'm so excited to see him in this scheme. He fits a Sean Payton guard so perfectly. And again, I think when you talk about the contract values on this team, Quinn Miners is arguably one of the best offensive line value contracts in the league right now. And I think he's going to prove that this season.
I think so too. I was saying on last night's podcast that it's hard for me to imagine it's hard for me to think of another Broncos team that I've sat there and really, really watched where I feel more comfortable with my two guards, man. I really feel comfortable with Ben Powers and Quinn Miners this next year. I think that duo, if we're just looking around the league at guards, they're up there. They're going to, by the end of this season, Quinn Miners and Ben Powers will be up there as far as the best two guards on one team. I really do think that. I think they're a super talented team. We're talking more about, guys have been in the league for a little bit. I want to talk about Drew Sanders, linebacker, edge rusher, a little of everything on that defensive side of the ball. A guy, Frankie, that fits that Vance Joseph scheme to a T. If I'm being honest, if you're looking at the linebackers that Vance Joseph has drafted in the past, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins, I think Drew Sanders is in that same mold of player, the super athletic, multiple position, versatile type, or at least the idea of. He is getting first team snaps, some, and it's clear to everybody that I've been reading, and you as well, Frankie, based off your notes, that he's going to get first team, or that he's going to have a big role this year. I want to know your opinions on that. How excited are you to see Drew Sanders in preseason week 1?
Beyond excited, Joey. I mean, this is a guy that I think, I don't really know what the usage is going to be, but if you can get this guy in the field for 15 to 20 snaps a game on passing downs, have him be a weaponized blitzer, have him covering in the flat, have him just manning up on tight ends or running backs. This is a guy that is just a defensive weapon. I don't know if there's necessarily a position you specifically want to put him at. Denver, it seems like he's playing him at off-ball linebacker. It seems like he's been rotating mainly with Alex Singleton. But I mean, this guy is just such a freak athlete. We hear it every day. Anytime a defensive player comes up and he gets asked about Drew Sanders, it's like he's a freak. Dude's just a freak. I can't wait to see it on the field. Like you said, you compared him to Zaven Collins. I think that's kind of the exact kind of facet that Vance Joseph is going to want to use him in. And I mean, there's just not enough I can say about him. I'm so excited to see what he gets to do this year. The Jonas Griffith injury absolutely sucks, but if there is one slight, I don't know, silver lining, is that we might get to see a little bit more Drew Sanders early on here. But I mean, yeah, I can't wait to get to see him. I hope the rest of the rookies get to catch up a little bit. I've seen some clips of JL Skinner. That dude looks massive out there as well. I want to get to see some Marvin Mims, and hopefully Riley Moss gets healthy. But as far as like who of the rookies is in the lead right now, Drew Sanders seems like by week 1 he could be a starter, and that the Denver Broncos wouldn't have an issue with it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm on record. I don't think there's anyone that was when Drew Sanders was drafted that ended up more of a fan than I was. Man, I love Drew Sanders' game. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. I really do. And it might not be rookie year. I think that there's certain packages that you're going to be able to bring him into, and you're going to be able to see all of that talent that you just laid out, Frankie, the freak athleticism, the stuff that is him as a pass rusher when the Broncos want to blitz him from that inside linebacker spot. All of that will stand out. There's certain things that he needs to tweak in his game to continue to get better, but I really do think that he's going to end up being a stud. And I am so excited to watch him every single game of this preseason because he's going to get extended time. Yeah. Being that next unit behind. He might get units with the first team. He might get plays with the first team. He might get plays with the second team. He might get plays with the third team. That's kind of where he is on this depth chart, I think, where he's going to kind of have to prove himself, but he does have a little bit of leeway with being where he drafted. He's going to get a lot of snaps this preseason. I'm so excited to watch him. I just want to see the flash. That's what I want to see.
And I think he's such an exciting addition to this Broncos defense, too. When you talk about Josie and Alex Singleton, who I think are above average linebackers, but they're predicated on going forward. They're predicated on stuffing gaps, filling gaps, stopping runs, and stuff like that. Whereas I think Drew Sanders is truly like his lateral mobility, his ability to go backwards, and his ability to come forward and fill gaps. Like, he's a guy that can truly do it all for this defense. I think he gives them such a unique flavor. And I mean, it'll be really interesting seeing how it splits up over the year based on like what downs they're using him on, what personnel packages they're matching him up against. Just seeing all around how Vance Joseph deploys this chess piece.
Shout out to Andrew in the chat. He says Russell Wilson isn't very good. Am I right? We'll see this year. I'm not the biggest Russell Wilson guy. At the moment. I'm really, really not. And Frankie, just a last segment of the day here. I want you to preview tonight's Hall of Fame game. I think everyone's really excited about the NFL just being back. I think everyone's really excited about that. Give us some players to watch out for in this game. Just get people hyped up.
All right. First of all, Zach Wilson starting. And like, I don't know. I kind of have this like, wouldn't it be hilarious if like Aaron Rodgers turned Zach Wilson into the Aaron Rodgers to Brett Favre? I think that'd be hilarious. I had that weird thought today while I was in the shower. I love thinking about football in the shower. It's one of my favorite things. I do it all the time. And man, I hope Zach Wilson maybe like doesn't have an absolutely horrible game, but I got a lot of names written down. All right, so here we go. For the Jets. Jets got a big backfield I like. You got Israel Abanikanda. You might have heard of him. He's from Pitt. Really athletic guy, super duper fast. I think he's going to be a decent receiving option. He's in one of my parlays tonight on Underdog Fantasy. We're not sponsored.
You're a sicko doing.
I'm an absolute sicko. By the way, 3.5 fantasy points. That man just a couple catches, Joey. That's one touchdown. That's like 30 yards. All right. He's getting it. Easy money. Zonovan Knight, also going to have a good game. I like him a lot. He was a receiving
option. That's guy, by the way. He's been a huge Zonovan Knight guy for a long time.
I can't remember if he was a UDFA or a 7th rounder. Do you remember?
I think he was a 7th rounder. I'm not sure, though. But I know Zach was hyping him up out of college.
Yeah, he's exciting. I think he'll get some kick return opportunity. Jeremy Ruckert was a tight end I liked, I believe, last year or the year before out of Ohio State. We got Joe Tippmann, a center out of Wisconsin. Max Mitchell. Player. The Jets have they've assembled some of my favorite depth defensive pieces over the past couple of years. So I think their second year, I think some of the guys we're going to see a lot tonight. Jermaine Johnson, stud out of Florida State from last year, I absolutely love. Solomon Thomas, who was a few years ago drafted from the 49ers, ended up following Salah, freak.
Yes, but man, never should have been drafted where he was drafted.
Oh, never should have been drafted.
Wasn't he third? I think
fourth, yeah.
Third or fourth. He was up there. He was, you know what happened to him, Frankie? You know how Draymond Jones is versatile. He could play the edge or the interior and be good at both. Solomon Thomas ended up being a tweener. There's this very
Master of none.
people a lot of the time call tweeners versatile. They're not. Those are completely different things. You need to be good at one position before you could be good at two.
Yep.
Like you can't just be playing two. You need to be good at two to be versatile.
Yep.
And that's something Solomon Thomas never was.
No, I completely agree. Then we got my guy, Will McDonald. Anyone who watched our draft show, Will McDonald was one of my favorite guys last year. Insane bend on this guy. Freak athlete. Excited to see what he can do getting to play under Saleh. Hamza Nasir-Ali. Oh, my God. Hamza Nasir-Aline. I think I said that properly. One of my favorite guys from a couple years ago.
Oh, my God. Is that that's a safety, right, from Florida State?
Yep. He was a safety a year ago. He's playing off. He plays like off-ball linebacker for the Jets. He'll play some tonight. They've got Trey Dean. Yep. Love me some Trey Dean. Trey Dean was a guy I fell in love with in this draft cycle. Hoping to get Trey Dean on the show someday. Shout out him. Ashton Davis, safety from Cal, I believe. Another guy I really like. He popped off at the Shrine Bowl last year. Maybe it was the Senior Bowl. And then Mekhi Becton I want to keep an eye on because Mekhi Becton is my, like, if Denver needs a cheap buy low tackle option for next year to play in the Sean Payton scheme, I'm keeping my eyes on Mekhi Becton. I don't necessarily know if there's much there, but whatever. And then we got the Cleveland Browns.
All right, man. I got to say something before you start this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Cleveland Browns have so many players I want to watch tonight.
I know, right?
There are like, okay, like I was the biggest. I'm going to give one, and then I'm going to let you go. Cedric Tillman was, I mean, this guy, I think, for me, now I could be completely wrong. There's a good chance I'm completely wrong because I'm completely in the outlier in this. But I made it a point this last year where if I have a strong draft opinion, I'm going to stand next to it. So I'm going to say it. To me, Cedric Tillman was a top 3 receiver this last year's draft. That's how much I liked him. I loved Cedric Tillman's game. And then who does he have throwing him the ball, Frankie?
Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Absolute baller. Absolute baller. I can't remember who else is playing for the Browns. Oh, Kellen Mond, of course. How could I forget? Kellen Mond, who Mike Zimmer hated this guy. It's going to be so fun seeing if he sucks again. That'll be really funny. There was the week where, I don't know if you remember the clip, where it was like, are you looking forward to getting an extended look at Kellen Mond this week? And Mike Zimmer's bold-faced response, he Vic Fangio, I mean, he just goes, not particularly. And they said, why? And he goes, because I see him every day in practice. Kellen Mond kind of sucks, and I'm excited to see him play in an NFL game. So we got him. I'm excited to see DeJuan Jones and Luke Wilper, 2 pieces of that Ohio State offensive line from last year. Me and Joey were both big DeJuan Jones fan. Absolutely mammoth human. I want to see how he plays on an NFL field. Cedric Tillman and David Bell getting to line up outside with some Elijah Moore mixed in. That's just fun. This is basically a college football game. Greg Newsome, I don't know if Newsome's going to play.
Yeah, I doubt he'll play. He's been injured too much to play a guy that of his caliber in a preseason.
Yeah. I think I just want to throw Greg Newsome on there because I know you love Greg Newsome and I like Greg Newsome. So I just want to say his name a little bit.
You want to know some stupid take I had in the chat? You could roast me for this. I don't care. I had Greg Newsome over Patrick Surtain. That's a take I had.
I had J.C. Horn.
I did. I love Greg Newsome. And Greg Newsome has turned out to be a good pro. J.C. Horn had a good year last year, too. That cornerback class was awesome. Asante Samuel Jr. also came out of there. That was a good cornerback class.
Yeah. And then they're another team that has another, like, good group of depth front 7 guys. Siaki Ika, he was the Baylor nose tackle from last year, who's like 330 pounds, absolute meatball guy. I love watching. He'll probably get some reps in the middle. They've got Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire, who are 2 edge prospects who could not be like kind of more, well, not really, but they're pretty opposite on the spectrum. Isaiah McGuire, I'd say, is a lot more of a finessey, bendy rusher. And Alex Wright is like 280 pounds.
Is Alex Wright the kid from FAU?
I think he's from UAB.
UAB, I mean, bro, I loved him coming out of college.
He's sick.
A big Alex Wright guy. He is a freak athlete. There's no doubt about it. He just had no idea what he was doing.
He's I found about him from Corey Keenan. Shout out Corey Keenan. He does a lot of good Browns work, but he was a huge Alex Wright guy and had a really good interview with him. And then, of course, he ended up on the Browns, which is just super fun for that guy. Yeah. So, him, Isaiah McGuire, and then AJ Green, who was a corner I liked a year or 2 ago, who, I'll be honest, I might have just written his name down as a guy I like because his name was AJ Green. And I mean, who doesn't love AJ Green? AJ Green was one of my favorite college receivers of all time. So, but no, AJ Green, I think, was a pretty decent prospect a year or 2 ago. But so those are the players I'm keeping an eye on. I'm going to be busy watching that game, seeing what numbers come in and out. I'm going to have the depth charts next to me so I can be making my notes. And
hell yeah, man. Hey, thanks for hyping us up on all that. Thanks for giving the people some people to watch tonight. I think, Frankie, you know what you should do, and I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire here, but I think you should tweet out those list of players I'm watching out for tonight, so the people that didn't write those names down that are in the chat right now have some guys to watch.
Okay.
And so, yeah, maybe you tweet that, or drop it in the Discord. That's what you should do. Drop it in the Discord. If you guys aren't in the Discord, go do that. We link so many things on Twitter. We have a link tree where you guys can join. It's getting really popping. A lot of people are talking in there throughout the entire day, football, even random stuff. So if you guys want to come join that, go do that. Otherwise, Frankie, where can the people find your amazing work, man?
Frankie's Film on Twitter. Over here every Thursday. Irish Show. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Seriously, go join the Discord. It's a good time. We got a good community over there. Talking football, talking college football, talking fantasy, talking baseball, soccer. You want to talk video games. You want to talk about movies. You want to tell me that Dune sucks, even though you're wrong. Go join it in the Discord. You'll have a really fun time. And also leave likes and subscribes on the YouTube. And
please help the pod out, man.
And we're the Thursday show now, which is pretty
we're the
slight
Thursday
rebrand.
Show. That's something. We'll talk about that next time because we're continuing a rebrand here, guys. You're going to notice different things change. And when it all comes together, we're going to do a whole thing about it. But everyone, please follow me at JR Drafts. Make sure you are liking, subscribing to Let's Talk Broncos YouTube. We are completely independent now, the podcast. So if you guys could please support our YouTube, that would be fantastic. It would mean the world to us. Otherwise, everybody have fun watching the game tonight and go Broncos.